There's a name for it when you know something bad is going to happen and can't do a thing to stop it. They call it the Cassandra complex. It's a term sometimes used to describe the mindset of a person who can see that something is going to end in disaster and is unable to change it. You've probably experienced a Cassandra complex or two yourself. Someone you love says or does a single thing, and the present disappears. You flash forward into meltdowns and pain and picking up pieces after the dust of disaster has settled. And you are burdened by powerlessness. Nothing you can do or say will change a thing. Maybe because you can't control someone else's behavior. Maybe because you can't convince anyone of consequence that your prediction is accurate. Sometimes the powerlessness comes because your knowledge of the end result comes just a little too late. No matter the reason, it is awful. No one likes to be powerless. And in these moments, these burdened moments of unfortunately very clear vision, we are left with that staggering question: what do I do? You can't steer the ship to safety. So what do you do? Just stand there and watch? Do you try to stop it anyway, knowing that your attempts will be fruitless? Do you turn your back and just refuse to watch? Do you play along and play dumb? It's heartbreaking, trying even just to figure it out. In today's gospel reading, I see a scenario where a bunch of people are struggling with their collective Cassandra complex. Jesus did not give any of them a choice when he shared his plan to overpower death. He wasn't shy about foretelling that he not only had to suffer, but die. It appears in the book of Matthew and Mark and Luke, almost to the word. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days, rise again. He said all this quite openly. It's not a forgettable thing when your beloved teacher tells you that he's not only going to die, but suffer along the way. Once is more than enough. It's the sort of thing you're kind of honored that he's told you, but actually, you really wish he just kept it to himself. How is a person supposed to respond? Less than a week before Passover, before Jesus' terrible fate goes down, they find themselves sitting in the house of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. The same Lazarus who died, Jesus wept over and then raised from the dead. The same Martha who lived to serve Jesus. The same Mary who sat at Jesus' feet, so mesmerized by his teaching that her second-class citizenship was but a distant memory. This devoted, indebted, adoring family and Jesus' closest disciples were spending some time together, knowing they didn't have much time left. And Mary seems to say, stuff it. No time like the present. In answer to the question, what do I do? Mary pulls out a pound of perfume made of pure nard. Nard comes from a valerian flowering plant that grows in the Himalayas. It's not native to the Middle East, and during those days prior to globalization, importing made things extremely expensive. And it was stinky. It reeked of extravagance and honor, because at that time you would typically smell it in one of only two situations. The first was a burial. It helped cover the odor of the decaying body and it honored the deceased, showing how beloved they were to those left behind. Mary had seen death in her life recently. She had lost her own brother not too long before this very night. This fragrance may well have been all too familiar to Mary. I could understand if that recent experience pushed Mary to show Jesus how she felt about him while he could still receive the message. I don't know if you've ever heard this phrase, but I love it. Give me my flowers now, not later. What good are gifts to someone who is dead? Why not give them while the recipient is still alive? Let them know now before it's too late that they are beloved. There's another reason that Mary would have used this costly perfume to anoint Jesus. The other occasion that you would have smelled this stinky kind of luxury was in the presence of new royalty. It was used in coronation ceremonies. Kings, emperors, pharaohs, they all would have smelled like this on the day of their coronations, anointed behind some curtain, shut away from the awaiting public who believed he was being kissed by God, making a mouthpiece for himself to the people through the new monarch. But here was Mary in a room full of Jesus' nearest and dearest, declaring Jesus was the Son of God. However anyone else felt about him, Mary was drawing a line in the sand. This guy, not Caesar, was the true king. The one who brought a salvation that provided hope, not just for the future, but for the here and now. Christ's gospel transformed an oppressed citizenship under Rome into a status of valued importance in the kingdom of the true God. To Mary, Jesus was a king who said that she was more than just a housekeeper, cook, or baby maker. God saw her as every bit as important as any man of any nationality. Here, in her living room, was the bearer of not just the good news, but the best news. Who better to receive this extravagant anointing? When better to offer him this gift than now, while he can willingly receive it? And receiving it was Jesus' response, not only to Mary's weighty and double-sided gift, but to the terrible question of what do you do in the face of your own death? Knowing of his own death and suffering, and knowing that conceding to it was his only option, Mary offered Jesus not only an anointing, but a balm, a soothing moment of relief and encouragement. Mary was a disciple who not only understood, but was empowered by his teaching. She did not live like a refugee in his kingdom. She lived like a loud and proud citizen